Good to be with you again this morning. My name is Kris Gallagher, and I'm one of your resident Methodists. Grateful for the hospitality and welcome whenever I'm here. Always a fun place to come. And today's Old Testament choices were Sodom and Gomorrah or Hosea marrying the wife of whoredom. So I can see that there's a little hospitality where Methodists are concerned, but perhaps also a little testing. So we'll see how we do with it this morning. I'm joking, of course. I like the hard ones. Prayer is at the heart of Christian life. When I was a little girl and they told us to pray in Sunday school, it was like the whole room would groan. We have to be quiet again while somebody says a bunch of words I don't care about. Great. Prayer has changed for me over time, thank goodness. Privately, publicly, with people or alone, intercessory, contemplative, meditative, and all the other many and varied forms and flavors of prayer have grown on me over time, which is good. But I would also agree with the commentator this week who wrote, prayer is also at the heart of a lot of Christian frustration, misunderstanding, and even pain. Why is that? Why is talking to God sometimes frustrating or confusing or painful? Rob Bell tells a story about a particularly memorable week for him in ministry when two different families in his congregation had babies in the NICU. And so he went, because that's what we do, right? We show up for each other. He went and he prayed over those plastic boxes with the babies inside. And he prayed with one family for healing and strength for this little baby. But unfortunately, the baby passed away. And he prayed with the other family for healing and strength for this little baby who had been diagnosed with this very rare and life-threatening condition. And at their next appointment, the doctor, who was an expert in this particular issue, said he'd never seen anything like it before. The tumor was just gone. And the baby was healthy and fine. And the community who had wept with one family celebrated and called it an answer to prayer with the next family. And the pastor stood in the middle and said, both babies were prayed over. Did God answer one prayer and not answer another? Was one family just better people than the other? I don't think so. That doesn't sound like the God we know. The God who is loving and caring and compassionate and unconditional and shows up for everybody. So what's happening? And why pray? If it's going to shake out the way it shakes out, why pray? Sorry, I'm usually funny, but this morning we're talking about something that hits close to my heart because I think it's painful for a lot of people. And so I love this story of Abraham negotiating with God. He's doing the little kid 5 more minutes thing. But 5 more minutes? Can we have 5 more minutes? Because it shows that God doesn't operate in a vacuum. God isn't on high making decisions, sending lightning bolts, as often as I'd like to direct those lightning bolts myself. God operates in response to relationship, not certainty, not mystery, but this third other thing that contains both certainty and mystery, relationship. Abraham trusts God and asks for what he wants, whether the result ends up being good, bad, or neutral. And likewise, even when the people of God drive God absolutely bonkers with their mind-blowingly bad choices over and over again in Scripture, God chooses to be with them and to love them and to stick it out and try to guide them to be better and healthier and more heavenly in their being together. So if all of this is to be taken as a point of evidence, it seems like prayer isn't really a honey-do list for God. God, here are all the things I'd like you to do for me today. It seems like it's more about building the kind of relationship with God that is authentic and honest and supportive and good. And then Jesus backs this up in the New Testament reading today when he compares prayers to a friend asking for a favor or a child who's hungry. It's not the pestering persistence. In fact, this word that gets translated as persistence should probably be translated shamelessness, which I love. The shamelessness of asking for what you need. The shamelessness that arises from trusting in the relationship that your friend loves you and will help you. I love that. The shamelessness of prayer. We can ask, even if it doesn't work out the way we want it to. We don't have to be embarrassed that we need something. We can ask. And building that relationship that is authentic and supportive and honest and good is important. We have to do a little aside because whenever Sodom and Gomorrah comes up, I just feel like I need to do a little, just in case, because there's some misconceptions out there about Sodom and Gomorrah. A fairly common misconception is that they were considered evil places because of the dreaded beast of homosexuality. Gasp. Okay? Actually, no. Actually had nothing to do with homosexuality. If you read the text in context, Sodom and Gomorrah's big sin was, and tell me if this sounds at all familiar today, violent treatment of the outsider, sexual assault and abuse of the vulnerable, total lack of hospitality, and cruel neglect of the poor and starving among them despite the abundance of food. Can we all sit with that for a second? The sin of Sodom is in the news. So what I'm saying is, if God was offended by those things in Abraham's day, there's a pretty good chance they're just as offensive now, and I know that they break our hearts as well. But we'll get back to it. God and Abraham, with each other through it all, good, bad, and neutral. Relationships between any two people, you name them, siblings, friends, spouses, parents and children, teachers and students, choir members, band members, tech team members, people sitting next to each other on the bus, you name it, right? Has a balance of what is familiar, what is mysterious, and what is possible. I think that's what prayer is, choosing to be together with God through what is familiar, what is mysterious, and what is possible. Trusting one another that you're not going to hand each other a scorpion when you need an egg. Trusting each other to ask for what you need, not because you want to pester somebody into it, but because you're not afraid to admit that you need help, because you know this person's going to love you anyway. Like a good marriage or a great friendship, that kind of relationship makes everything else that's hard in life just a little bit easier. We witness each other. We support each other. We ground each other. And there's some pretty obvious ways we can help God. Can you think of some obvious ways we can help God? Anything we've got that God might need? Anybody? Hands? Feet? Literal bodies, right? Yeah. We can do things in the world, physically do things in the world. Can you think of anything God might have that we might need? Everything else. Everything else. I also want to just point out, see, I like the hard scriptures, but then I like to really dig into them and make them harder for you, and I'm sorry for this. This is my brain having fun. There is a power differential in our relationship with God. Would you agree? Okay, God is God, and my Spider-Man fan, Stan Lee, says, with great power comes great responsibility. Y'all need to watch more superhero movies. Shouldn't God do the heavier lift, right? Maybe we think God should fix things more than God currently does. Maybe we think God should intervene a little more and prevent some of the atrocities that have come about because of human corruption. And yet, one of the best gifts God ever gave us, and one of the things that is absolutely non-negotiable in a loving relationship, is free will. Consent matters. Coercion removes any freedom and any trust in the relationship. Love, whether it's God or whether it's ours, is about being with without forcing, right? And that can also be frustrating when we just want God to fix it. There's a person at another church that I attend every week whose prayer every week is just for smiting. She just prays for smiting. It hasn't happened yet, which I'm kind of grateful for. She prays for smiting every week. She's just, God could just fix this. And I'm like, maybe not. Think about any other relationship where there's one person who always fixes it for the other. Is that what we want with the creator of the universe? To be infantilized and coddled and controlled and never really know who we are or what we're capable of because God's just going to fix it? To never really have any freedom to make choices? Any parent who sent a kid off to school or camp or college or grandma's house for the weekend knows the twinge of letting go and letting the kid test their own limits, find their own capacity, build their own confidence, and become resilient and strong. It's not easy to let go, but otherwise the kid stays a kid forever. And our whole job is to help them grow up and be good people. Our relationship with God is about choosing to love what is familiar and make room for what is mysterious and what is possible, and then acting according to whatever possibilities and capabilities we have. I want the kind of love that God has, the kind of love that you have to have if you have a cat, you know? Where consent really matters because the claws come out. I want that kind of love that has restraint and invitation and affection. I want that kind of love to rub off on me. I want to love people that way. Not the way I think they should be loved, but the way that they are willing to accept love. I want that to rub off on me. And the only way I know how to do that, and this is because of dog training, is time and repetition, letting God work on me over and over again and shape my heart a little bit more at a time. So when we approach prayer as a list of requests for God that God either says yes or no to, we set up this weird transactional relationship that is doomed to disappoint us. But when we approach prayer as an opportunity to hang out with a God that we want to rub off on us, it changes the dynamic. We cultivate a relationship based on authenticity and genuine responsiveness. God's responsiveness to us and our responsiveness to God. Theologian Marjorie Suhoki says, all of creation is call and response. I love that. All of creation is call and response. God initiates by calling all things into being, by creating each one of us as unique and gifted people, by loving us, by placing us in us some natural drives that we have, and we respond. We make choices. We grow up. We learn along the way. And then God responds to those choices and gives us more choices. And so as the world unfolds around us, as we journey down this path, Robert Frost's Yellow Wood, as we journey down this path and we choose the road more or less traveled, sometimes there's more than two choices, right? As we choose, no matter which branch of the road that we choose, God goes with us down that branch and offers us another set of choices. And sometimes those choices are limited by the choices that we made before. And sometimes it opens up a whole world of possibility that we didn't know existed. But God doesn't say, well, you went down the wrong road, so good luck. You know, good luck with the Garmin. Yeah? What's the word the Garmin used to say all the time? Recalculating. Recalculating. God does not have the Garmin voice out. Recalculating. God's just like, well, I guess we're lost. Let's figure this out. Right? That's kind of liberating to think that even when we're absolutely lost, God is with us looking at the Google map and going, well, okay, hang on. What are our choices here? Here's what I think. It can be a little unpredictable being on this kind of journey with God. and kind of fun and a little risky to talk to God like this. Life with God is like jazz. People have very strong opinions about jazz. My husband is a jazz musician. I have very strong opinions about jazz. There may be some predictable structures, but who knows what the trumpet player is going to do? And the sax may really throw you for a loop sometimes. But what makes jazz work is everybody, all the musicians, keep checking in with each other. They find that rhythm and that structure, and they keep checking in with each other, and eventually they find themselves in the middle of the woolly wood of improvisation, and then they find their way out again because they keep checking in with each other. That's what prayer is. Prayer is jazz, is daring to take a solo and then checking in with God again to say, yeah, should we keep going? Prayer can happen at any time. I can sneak a prayer in at the line at the grocery store. I got to do it this week. There was a woman in front of me with her rigidly organized SNAP benefits, trying to make sense of an absolutely chaotic system and which brand of milk she was allowed to buy. And the people were getting impatient in line, and the clerk was frustrated, and the woman was almost in tears. And I thought, oh, I can pray. That's what I can do. I can pray and I can play with the baby so she doesn't worry. Right? What a great opportunity. I can wink a prayer at a child who is watching me train a dog at the park and desperately hoping to come over and say hi. I can cry a quick prayer when a song comes on that moves me. I can laugh a prayer when I see somebody I adore after I haven't seen them for a long time. My most common prayer is some nonverbal version of, would you look at that? Did y'all ever pray that? Would you look at that? Noticing and inviting God in on the fun, or the concern, or the hope. A puppy is gamboling through the training room. Would you look at that? That's cool. A coworker is patiently explaining to somebody for the 15th time how to attach a PDF to an email and managing to keep it under control. I look at them and go, would you look at that? That's growth. That's good. A person is trying again and again and again and failing, and the stupid PDF won't attach to the stupid email, but they're going to keep trying. Would you look at that? Amazing. A particularly vibrant leaf falls onto the sidewalk. Would you look at that? It's beautiful. My husband's father, Ian, is one of my favorite people. He travels all over the world, and he says, you just have to know 4 things. Hello, thank you, 2 beers, please, and that's beautiful. And if you can say those 4 things, you can talk to anybody. Hello, thank you, 2 beers, please, and that's beautiful. Would you look at that? Sometimes would you look at that has more of a flavor of help about it than wow. Like the bile that rises when I see the billboards telling people they're going to hell. Would you look at that? Or the twinge of heartbreak when I see a desperate brother with a sign on the side of the road. Would you look at that? I have cried out to God in prayer and heard God laugh me out of my seriousness. I have lain on the floor beyond words and felt God lay down next to me and just help me breathe. Scripture says the Spirit intercedes with groaning when our prayers are formless and wordless because our suffering is so great. Prayer can be a long meditation in a beautiful and quiet place, or prayer is sometimes a rowdy dance party in my kitchen while I'm making dinner. Prayer is inviting God to be part of whatever's going on and listening for the ways that God draws close. And God sometimes also says, would you look at that? An opportunity to be kind to your neighbor, Kris. Would you look at that? A friend is asking you for help moving. Oh, would you look at that? Thanks a lot, God. A powerful person is making choices that cause harm in the world. Would you look at that? Prayer is letting God rub off on us, that heart rub off on us, and learning to love and be loved, and choosing to love even when it's hard. And justice, of course, is what love looks like in public. So loving is sometimes fighting. A baby is sick in the hospital. Its family is stressed and grieving and hopeful, and I don't know if they're going to make it. Would you look at that, Kris? Can you show up? Can you love the people? Even if you don't know how it's going to turn out. Can you show up and love the people? God teaches us to love and care for one another, to deepen our compassion, to fire up our desire for justice, and to pay attention to the world that we're living in. Anne Lamott suggests we only really need 3 prayers: help, thanks, and wow. Some days I think she's right. Some days too many words put up too many barricades between me and God, and I get lost in my own verbiage. Sometimes all we need is just the moment to connect and not let overthinking get in the way, and just say, God, here's what's going on with me. Would you look at that? The disciples asked Jesus to teach them to pray because John gave his disciples a special prayer, and we should get one too. I love the disciples. You got to remember, like, half of them were teenagers, okay? Will John's disciples have a special prayer, Jesus? Can't we have a special prayer? So Jesus teaches them this special prayer, and it's one that allows us to acknowledge who God is and who we are, and that we're choosing to go through it together, making space for each other and supporting each other through the worst, asking for what we need, unashamed, shamelessly asking for what we need, hoping for a world made righteous and just and kind, and being ready to answer when God says, hey, would you look at that? So I rewrote this week, the Lord's Prayer. It doesn't need rewriting. It's pretty good. I think Jesus did an okay job. 10 out of 10, no notes. But I rewrote it for me, and I want to share it with you, and this is how we'll close today. So I invite you to take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Our beloved, familiar and mysterious one, we know you're good and righteous and heavenly and holy. And we want to live in a world that is gracious and compassionate and just by your design. Support us to do the things you call us to do, to make that world manifest right here and right now. We need some basic things to get through, and we're not afraid to tell you about them, to ask about them, with the confidence of people who are imperfect and unashamed and secure in your love. We also know that we mess up quite a lot, despite our best efforts, and we cause harm, and we need forgiveness and grace. We will extend that same forgiveness and grace to the other imperfect people around us who cause us or others harm. Strengthen us to make the choices that are the most loving and kind and wise and good, even when the other options are tremendously appealing. Protect us from the worst failures that would lead us to believe that we're alone or unworthy or justified in our selfishness or disregard of the humanity of others. Free us from evil thoughts, actions, and fears, and from trials too great to endure. When it comes down to it, we know this whole world is yours, including us, woven together in the power of your love. How wonderful Would you look at that?